Hi, this is Jamey, and I'm here to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Blood Rage by Eric Lang, which I just played for the first time in a three-player game this past Wednesday, a couple days ago. Um, I actually just recorded the same video, but my cat was walking on my desk the whole time, shaking the camera, so I figured I'd record it real quick again and maybe be a little bit more succinct. So my favorite, Blood Rage is a game where you are attacking other players. It's really about attacking. It's a battle game at heart, but it has some interesting Euro mechanisms to it, like you're upgrading, you're moving along these tracks, you're scoring points at the end. Um, but the one thing I think it does really, really well, and adds a lot of variety to the game, is that it adds a draft. So there are 3 rounds in the game, and every round you draft a hand of cards that either make you better in battle for that round, they give you quests for that round, or they're upgrades for you to use that round. Either upgrades to your leader, your warriors, your general. I don't even know. Some of them are just like general upgrades. There's a ship upgrade. There's monster upgrades where you get to add these giant monsters to the board. And these are a lot of fun, this draft element, because there's a lot of variety from game to game. You're always excited about what you're going to kind of open up. I've talked about in Magic how you open up a pack and see what's inside. You get that same feeling when you draft. Um, and you know what you're passing to the next player. So you know, hey, maybe I don't want to give this guy this really good card that I know is going to hurt me based on the current board position. Um, but you really want another card. So there's a lot of interesting choices and tension there. The really clever thing in addition to this draft, so I love that there is a draft. There are plenty of games with drafting, but I love that Eric Lang put a draft in Blood Rage. But one of my favorite things about the draft, this is so cool, comes kind of from Libertalia. If you play Libertalia, at the end of the round, so you draft these cards and then you play them during the round if you want. You don't have to play them. And then at the end of the round, you have to discard any remaining cards in your hand. So you can't just save up a bunch of cards and wait for like the last round to use them. So you have to discard most of them, but you get to keep one of them, which I love that you can. It's like that you have this little secret, this thing that you hung on to. Maybe it's like a really, really powerful card, and you hang on to it knowing that you get to use it later at just the right time. And sometimes it may not even be a clever decision. Sometimes it may just be that you ran out of rage, which is the resource in the game. You ran out of it and you need to save the card. But I like the element of being able to carry that over to a future game or future round. One thing I did want to mention, kind of my hang up with drafting in general, my one hang up is that for new players, it's pretty daunting. In an otherwise simple game, Blood Rage is very simple. The vast majority of your interesting decisions come from the 8 cards that you get at the beginning of each round. There are 3 rounds. So you have 8 cards to make a decision from right away in a game that you barely understand, which is kind of tough for a new player. Eric does some cool things with those cards where a lot of them are very basic, or some maybe clearly combo with other cards to help you. But I think in general, drafting games are a little daunting to new players because of that. And so the idea I wanted to mention would be a drafting game where everyone gets, like in the first round, there's no draft. You get a set hand of cards. Everyone gets the same exact hand of the most basic version of each card type. And that way, everyone is kind of on equal footing for that round. And whoever is teaching the game to the new players can say, okay, that when we play this battle card, this is what it does. They can show everybody as they do it. And I wonder if it could be really helpful for new players to get into drafting games and still leave experienced players with interesting choices to make about when to play these cards. Now, just to be clear, like in Seven Wonders, you draft, but you play the cards all at once. In Blood Rage, you do an entire draft and then you play the cards. So I think it would work best in a game like that, where you're doing a draft and then doing something with that hand of cards that you've drafted. If you just had that preliminary round. My hunch is that it would work for beginning players and experienced players. And if you want, I mean, there could be a very advanced level where you jump right into the draft. You don't have that preliminary round. But I think even with experienced players, sometimes it's nice to ease yourself into a game and still have interesting decisions as to like which card you play in which order. But but to not have to have like the brain burn right away of being faced with 8 cards. I don't know. I'm curious to try that if I ever do a drafting game. And I'm curious if you've seen this happen, if other games that you've seen have done this. Recently, I talked about Concordia. Concordia kind of does it, where everyone has the same set of cards, but it's not a drafting game. So this would be specifically for a drafting game. Let me know your thoughts about that mechanism, if you think it would work for helping people learn a drafting game and still being interesting to players who already know how to play that game. Thanks.